You guys are hot. Carpenter, now on Rock and Manooch on Fox Sports 910 on FM at 99.9 HD2.
We always enjoy catching up with Rudy. You can follow on Twitter at RudyGCarp12. He joins us now on the right foot of guest line. Rudy, we wanted to catch up with you today to talk about the Pac-12, Big 12, and just your thoughts on Colorado heading to the Big 12 and who you feel might be next. Do you think are you following this in the sense that maybe it could be the Arizona, and would you have any problem with Arizona left the Pac-12?
Yeah, I mean, obviously this is a big storyline and something that I've been following for sure. To be honest, I was always just a fan of the Pac-10. I wasn't a huge fan when Colorado and Utah joined, but that's how it went. But my real only concern for me is it just seems like they're on a collision course. Really, all of these conferences, and you're going to start seeing super conferences. My really only complaint about this whole situation is I think it would be really, really, really devastating for the state of Arizona if somehow Arizona State and Arizona were no longer in the same conference. I think that would be I think it would really be detrimental to the state of Arizona.
And with all that being said, if that happens, it sounds like U of A is at least in some serious discussions and probably leaning on the basketball progress and well as the football program. But don't you think in reference, is it a different vibe if it's a non-conference opponent and you still keep them in the loop, that being this U of A ASU game, or does that rivalry lose any luster whatsoever?
Well, I mean, it's kind of a tough question because I think it probably depends on the year, right? I know this is probably not an answer you're looking for me and you want something more juicy, but the truth of the matter is as of late, when ASU and U of A play each other, it's a great in-state rivalry. It's a messy game with messy fan bases, and those can be really fun. But as we all know, it's a lot more fun, when maybe they're playing that last game of the year. They're playing that rivalry game of the year. It's the, Ohio State, Michigan, where they're playing for the Big Ten championship. If you could get it like that on a regular basis where, ASU and University of Arizona are playing that territorial cup game, that rivalry game, and the winner, moves on to the Rose Bowl per se, or the winner wins the Pac-12 championship outright, to me, those are awesome high intensity games that, the storylines write themselves, right? So, but as of late, just being honest, these are teams that have been middle of the road teams at best. And so when they do play each other, usually the game doesn't pan out. There's not real big meaning to it other than in the state of Arizona.
Rudy Carpenter is our guest on the Wright Toyota guest line. Rudy, I'm curious for your thoughts on this aspect of the Big 12 and the Pac-12. They're going to announce their television rights apparently tomorrow. Sources are leaking out some information saying it's not going to include a major TV package. A lot of it is going to be streaming. In your estimation, will that matter to the schools, or it won't matter to the schools as long as they get money?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's another tough question, and to be honest with you, I think everything always comes down to what it always comes down to, which is show me the money, right?
Yep.
Show me the money. That's the only thing that matters. And I think when you look at, Fox Sports, Valley Sports, whatever you want to call it out here with the Diamondbacks and the Phoenix Suns, it comes down to money. The Coyotes deal with Valley just comes down to money. And I think that's the most important thing, probably to both of these schools if they want to put themselves in a position to, obviously get the most money. You need this. This money is so important because as you guys have seen throughout the country, it's an arms race. I mean, I feel like it wasn't that long ago. Manooch probably could vouch for this. It wasn't that long ago when USC built the Galen Center, and the Galen Center was a huge deal at the USC campus. Now, all of a sudden, 10 years later, they're acting as if their facilities are just totally outdated and need a new facility already, right?
Right.
And you know, you look at some of these programs, the LSUs, the Texas A&M, the Alabamas of the world, they have incredible facilities, and I think it really helps them in recruiting. So, you know, look, I think all of these teams, the commissioner included in the Pac-12, the number one thing they care about, you know, more than anything is what the money situation is going to look like for each. Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. Finish your point. I apologize for cutting you off there.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's just a tough situation. Like, I wish I could give you guys a better answer on this whole realignment thing, but I kind of got some boring answers for you guys today, just because there's just so much unknown. You know what I mean? And now all of a sudden, you know, these rivalry games. I mean, to be honest with you, when I think about the University of Colorado, I think about them being in the Big 12 and playing teams like Nebraska and those types of games. So to me, you know, I'm probably just too old school. I just like the way that it used to be.
Rudy Carpenter here on Fox Sports 910. Rudy, how much does this play into recruiting? Do you think the kid these days cares what conference they're in?
No. I think these kids, you know, really only care, you know, about a few things. Obviously, playing is super important. There's no doubt that the schools that have, you know, great shoe deals and that have really, really great facilities, I think, you know, are definitely at an advantage. But look, I also think with the way that NIL has come into play, I think what you see with the top kids in the country, and Arizona especially has been victim to it. When you go back and you look over the last 10 years, all of the highest recruited players in the state of Arizona, those nationally ranked guys, the Christian Kirks, the Spencer Rattlers, those types of guys, they all went out of state to huge programs in the Big 12 or the SEC. And I think what it comes down to for most of these guys is three things. Where can they play and play early? Can they get any money out of the university for NIL? And can they go to a school that's going to have a chance to play in the college football playoff and the national championship game?
And I think that's the showcase, right, Rudy? You mentioned earlier that some of that money from the media rights to enhance the scenario on campus with the new facilities, et cetera, et cetera. My question to you, and all that being said about the recruits and with the NIL, and from moving on, and I think we alluded to it, streaming versus actual big-time CBS, ESPN, Fox Sports, blah, blah, blah. You think that'll come into play now when these rights are announced yesterday with kids going, well, my folks, like, they can't afford Hulu, they can't afford this, or they can't afford that to watch me via streaming?
Well, yeah, and I think yesterday there was just some announcements with some other services. I don't know if it was like Spotify or other music streaming services who just announced they're going to raise their prices, right?
Yep.
But then you also see some of these streaming services like Disney who seem to be losing catastrophically amount of money. And you might say, well, what does Disney have to do with college football? Well, I mean, Disney's a huge conglomerate. I believe they own ESPN, right?
Yes.
And so you just never know. You never know. I really think that it's why I have such boring answers for you guys today. I just think it's the Pandora's box that's going to get open. And I just
3 minutes. 3 minutes.
Knows what we're really going into. I mean, another scenario I would paint to you guys is think about this. You look at like cable news channels, whether you're a CNN person or an MSNBC person or you're a Fox News person, right? These are shows that were getting, 1.2 million viewers in the important demographic, or 3 million viewers in the important demographic, depending on which hosts were hosting each individual show at certain hours, right? But then all of a sudden, you start doing some research on some of these different podcasts, these big popular podcasts, whether it's a Joe Rogan that people know, or a Kyle Kalinske that people know, or a Patrick David podcast that people know. And these people are getting, massive
2 minutes
viewerships, much larger than these multi-billion-dollar cable news channels, right? So my viewpoint is I think what we're seeing is that the way that people are taking in media, the way that people are viewing media in today's world is just so much different than what we're used to. And I don't know what this is going to mean for everything. I do know this, though. I think that college football and I think the NFL is still very, 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 very popular in the United States. I think it's only going to continue to grow, like we saw with the new salary cap and the revenue shares in the NFL just recently. I mean, look, I just think that it's going to be very interesting to see how all of this shakes out. But the way I look at it, too, unfortunately, is when we go back to it, I think what's really going to happen is there's going to be a super conference.
1 minute. 1 minute.
And we're still going to have the same 4 teams or the same 6 teams or 8 teams somewhere around there that are going to be vying for national championships every year. And Alabama's probably going to be in it. Ohio State's probably going to be in it. LSU, schools like that are probably going to be in it. And I think when it's all said and done, whether you're coming from South Dakota, whether you're coming from the state of Washington, whether you're coming from the most southern part of Florida, whether you're coming from the most, northeastern part of, the Canadian border up there, all of the best players in the country, in my viewpoint, are going to still try to play in the SEC. And I think that's just how things are going to go. And so I think that the only thing that's going to change for fans is how they're watching it. Are they streaming it on their phone? Are they streaming it on their laptop? Who are all these streaming services? But at the end of the day, you're still going to see the same 4, 5, 6, 7 teams every single year playing in the primetime games.
He's Rudy Carpenter. Nice enough to join us today. As always, buddy, thanks for the time. We appreciate good stuff. I didn't think any of those answers were boring.
No, they didn't bore me.
You brought it, as always. Appreciate it, buddy.
All right, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Rudy Carpenter joining us here on Rockin' Manooch with Jimmy B. So is the CW a viable option for the Pac-12's media rights deal? I'll give you a couple reasons why I think it is, and it may happen tomorrow. To Rockin' Manooch, Jimmy B, Fox Sports 910.
Check this out. This is The Herd. You're excited. I'm excited. With